Hey Space Sailors, welcome to the crew. I'm Sailor Agenda, and this is my Let's Play of Citizen Sleeper. We are continuing to, well, we've just helped out the refugee convoy, but things are kind of in limbo there now, and we're waiting for something to happen, doing some odd jobs while we wait.
Nope. Whoa. It hits you like a wave, a white-edged breaker roaring inland with the force of the entire ocean. The impact is a screaming brightness blanking out everything. Behind it is silence. You float in silence, suspended. No, you do not float. You are the silence. It's filled you up. It's emptied you out. You cease to exist. Time passes, though you do not feel it passing. Then something flickers in the silence. Then something moves. That something is you. You open your eyes to a metal ceiling of flickering lights. You feel the floor around you, patting it with shaking hands. You assemble an image of yourself lying on your back in a corridor. You shake off the silence and sit up. What was that? You glance around, looking for a sign of some change. Damage on the walls, shouts in the distance, fire and fear. Nothing has changed. The silence sits around you like fog. You try to think, furrowing your brow. How do you think again? Doesn't seem so easy anymore. You force the pathways to light up, the databanks to grant access. You feel like a fraction drive starting up after a long shutdown in cold vacuum. And the wave was noise. Just as the sound produced by a wave raking across a pebble beach represents trillions of impacts heard as a single roar, so this sound was the result of trillions of electrons flickering in place heard as a single, impossible scream. A memory image comes to you, one from the moments before the wave hit. You squint as you imagine it trying to cohere its blurry form. A broken, skeletal ring, the eye, and then a vast arc approaching it, a razor-edged white curve. The wave. The wave approaches the eye. The eye spins, turning each part to face that vast white edge. You recognize their skeletal data-clad forms. The bright market, the low end, the greenway, the wastes, then the wave hits just as the flotilla, the cordon, turns to face it. And after that, everything is silence. You open your eyes again. That is the epicenter. But of what? No, that timer expired at the same moment as this one, huh? Alright, Rabia, what's your deal? As you enter Rabia's office, you hear voices. Is that Sabine? You push open the door. Sleeper, what good timing, Rabia calls out as you enter. I wanted to introduce you to someone. The man is standing at the center of the room, speaking quietly with Rabia as he turns as you come in. Meet Yannick. Sleeper, he nods. Been hearing good things from Rabbi. He smiles an easy smile. Good to meet you. Likewise, likewise. He waves a ringed hand. Now, Rabbi, where were we? Actually, Rabbi places a hand on your shoulder. The sleeper was what I wanted to talk to you about. She doesn't spare you a look. What is going on? Oh, am I being executed by the mob? Cool, cool. Well, okay then. Yannick tucks his hands into his pockets. Go on. I'd like to recommend them to your ward. A tiny pause. They've shown themselves to be a capable ally here on the spoke side, but we have more than enough to run our territories. I hear the main block is proving more difficult. Yannick leans forward, slowly. It's a mess, Rabbi. He waits, his tinted glasses shimmering despite the lack of light in the unit. I can use them, he suddenly decides. Rabbi smiles. Good to hear. I can immediately... Yannick cuts her off with a raised hand. 1 second. He steps one surprisingly light step closer to you. You eager to work, Sleeper? Sure, yeah. Yannick nods his head as if listening to music. Okay, then. You suddenly are unsure if he's talking to you. That concludes it, Yannick pronounces. The Sleeper can come work in the ward anytime they like. You shoot Rabia a confused look. Rabia finally glances at you for a moment, but it's so fast you almost miss it. Good. I know you'll be happy with the work, Yan. Yannick reaches out and squeezes her shoulder. Sure, Rabbi, he says. Now please, he says, turning to face you, let us old friends get back to it. He guides Rabia away, leaving you standing alone. You look to Rabia, but she's deep in conversation, and so, stunned and confused, you leave. I assume I'm gonna be sabotaging from the inside, yeah, or just gaining his trust. Do I have a new... yes, his ward. Control the block, so... Yannick's a strange character, but he seems to understand the value of hard work. You'll gain his trust with time. The massive block at the center of the low end is made up of layers and layers of units. Patrolling this vertical city is a challenge. Okay. We got part 2 of this now. Hopefully we can focus pretty much everything we've got on it, because The only other thing that's on a close timer that we need to do is the aviary, basically, just to keep ourselves alive. Peek. Even before you reach the cordon, the damage is obvious. The blinking red lights, the drones, the tugs, all are gone. Half the cordon's frame has also been shorn away, perhaps through the impact of some falling ship. People push past you in the corridor, both Havenage staff and contractors, clearing the cordon. You push through the flow of people, and despite a few suspicious looks, they offer no resistance. The further you pass into the cordon, the less people you see. You can see a few sections have been closed off, their bulkhead doors sealed, and red warning lights punctuating the corridors, but otherwise, most areas seem functional. Suddenly, you feel a hand fall on your shoulder. Havenage security? You should have known better than to wander into this place. You brace yourself as your turn. Sleeper! Peek's wide eyes greet you as you turn. The cordon! They glance around, panicked. It's gone down. The Briar and Ash are still in there. Do you think she did this? Or perhaps Havenage messed up? They start pulling you towards the edge of the cordon. We should find her. What if... It wasn't her or Havenage, Peek. Peek stops. What are you saying? Something hit the station. Peek looks incredulous. Hit? Sleeper, we'd all be dead if that was the case. They pause to think. Maybe not an object, but a shockwave? A signal? An EMP would have taken out most of the station, but... Peek runs a hand through their hair. I don't know what you're saying, Sleeper. That doesn't sound... They look away down the corridor for a moment. Look, I have to find Ash. I'm sure you felt something, but we can talk about that later. Well, what took out the rest of the system? Because I feel like it's probably the same thing. They set off down the corridor. I can't sit around talking any longer. Find me in the Flotilla. I'm going to find a way to Ash no matter what. Without that, they rush away into the depths of the cordon, leaving you behind. It seems like you'll need to follow if you want to get any answers. Okay, then. The cordon. You find a small shuttle scavenging supplies from the cordon to take back to the Flotilla. They'll thank you, too, if you bring some scrap along. No. Inconveniently enough, I do not have any scrap right now, but I guess I can get some. Can I buy some? It would be honestly better than wasting an action. Or just work in the shipyard until I get some. Okay, I think they're docked here. Nope. Bad timing. I'll give myself like one shot maybe. Nope. Fine. I'll just do it the hard way. Although, you know what? I actually know. Hold on. I've got no timer yet, officially. Not that I've seen. So let's just work on the horizon until we get scrap. It's got to get done at some point. And there's still a ways to go, so... Ah, there we are. Second time is the charm. What is at this base camp now? Oh, nothing. I can just sleep here. I see. Okay, here's some scrap. We hand over the scrap and squeeze into the crowded shuttle. Time to head to the Flotilla. Okay, we can go out here now. Shifting ships, systems, and social structures. The only way to navigate the Flotilla is by rolling up your sleeves and helping out. So we can haul supplies. Getting the necessary supplies to each ship to meet their needs is a huge task. Joining the hauling teams is the simplest thing you can do to help. Or damage control. The wave hit systems more than anything, especially those on the ships, so there's 1,000 tiny repair jobs to be done. Yeah, we're better at interface, let's do it. You reboot a tanker's proximity controls, keeping it from drifting into other ships. The occupants are impressed and won't stop thanking you. Okay. We'll be able to finish that pretty good. Oh, we already found Peak, apparently. So, as you walk into the bay of the climbing Briar, the familiarity of the space overcomes any trepidation. It feels good to be back, and the return feels earned, especially after all the work it took to figure out a route through the Flotilla's jumble of ships that might lead you to this blue streak. You see Ash and Peak immediately, sitting at the back of the bay, deep in conversation. Their closeness causes you to stop, suddenly aware you might be interrupting something private. Peek is explaining something forcefully as Ash stares out into the middle distance, hunched over. She suddenly spots you. Sleeper, Ash nods. Didn't quite turn out like we hoped, right? Peek stops and glances between the two of you, the tension rising. Plan was always risky. For me more than you, Ash shakes her head. Maybe if you'd spent less time trying to question it, things would have gone better. No, Ash, do not blame me for this. Peek looks nervous. It has worked out. They appeal to you. The flux event knocked the entire cordon system offline. The Flotilla's free and Havenage are backing off. Flux event? That's what the refugees are calling it, Peek explains. Apparently that's what they called it when it started happening around Ember. Yeah, what the hell is happening exactly? Hard to tell. It's some kind of disruptive wave that only affects electrical systems, Peek chips in. Typically, systems are screened against radiation interference, but this seems to be dulled, but not stopped by those defenses. The crisis continues, Ash sighs. The cordon may be down, but this brings a whole other set of problems. You should tell them, Ash. Peek glances at her. Please? Ash doesn't respond. Tell you what. You stare at her back, waiting for a response. Please, Ash, haven't they shown they can be trusted? Peek nods towards you. Ash turns, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She goes to start and then stops. You can see the anger in her eyes, but you realize it's not directed at you or at anyone else. She's angry with herself. I brought weapons to the flotilla, she pauses, and now they are gone. You suddenly remember the sleek crates tucked into the bay, marked with a yellow sigil, contains explosives. The ones Ash told you were just supplies. What do you mean, gone? What do you think? Ash snapped. Someone lifted them from the ship's bay while I was unloading the supplies. She sniffs. At least they're in the hands of the flotilla now. Peek looks at you. She knows this was a bad move, Sleeper, I promise you. They glance back at her. She's just too proud to admit it. So where'd she get them from? XPR, Ash gestures around the ship. I wasn't about to leave the colony armed when we escaped. I wouldn't trust them not to use them on us. Peek sighs. I didn't know a thing about them. Which is why Ash is going to be the one to find them and bring them back. We should probably help Peek before a bloody war starts. Ash turns. It's okay, Sleeper. I don't want anyone getting mixed up in this. This is my responsibility. She looks away. Plus, Peek adds, you and I have work to do. I want to understand the flux, Sleeper, to study it. Peek's eyes light up. This thing is changing the entire system, causing problems across the inner system, driving refugees off Ember's moons, and now it's here. If we don't do something about it, Peek pauses, it's a problem for all of us. I can see more immediate problems, Ash sniffs. Peek ignores her. I've been looking at the networks, and when the flux event hit, it changed things. It shuffled systems, corrupted nodes, and broke open data stores. I take out a slate and show you a flickering polygon. Some of these fluxed nodes have appeared near the epicenter of the event, but I can't get access. You, however, I saw the way you worked with data when we were preparing for the run. I think you can get into these things. I want you to find a fluxed node and bring me anything you can extract. They come and go, but most can be found in the barely functioning networks of the wastes. Peek pauses. Start there. Perhaps together we can find something that might point us to what the flux is and where it comes from. Okay. They smile. I knew you'd agree. Ash looks indignant. Don't waste too much time chasing ghosts, Sleeper. There are people on this flotilla that need any help they can get. I'm sure Sleeper can do both, Ash. Peek smiles at you. I'll see you here when you have something. Good hunting. And then wave you out as Ash stomps away to make plans of her own. Good grief, why am I in sole charge of everything here? Okay, they want flux data. That's fine. And we're gonna keep exploring. Okay. Well, we're up to 3 drives now. There's no timers yet, so... hit some stabilizer. Peaked cat. Yeah, not a great set of rolls. Oh well. Buy some food. Okay. Do I want to progress the main thing, or do I want to progress... Let's progress these a little. Gear slides from the bottle into the lumpy recycled glass, a pale grassy yellow under the overlook's warm lights. The spacer nods and takes the drink, bringing it up to their face in both hands like an offering bowl. This is the good stuff. The stuff Tala says is aged in wooden casks, stored in some closed-off part of the old station among corroded wires and softly looping systems. Though sometimes it's hard to tell if Tala's joking. Either way, you like pouring this stuff. It gets on your fingers, and if you rub them together, you can smell the mossy drink, cut through with aniseed, mushrooms, and wood as the alcohol evaporates. You like those who order it, too. The aged gear is kept beneath the bar, open to order only by those who know it's there, like the quiet spacer sitting at the bar right now. You pull a rag from your overalls and wipe down the bar, the gear smell lifting, then disappearing into the stale station air. The overlook's quiet this cycle. The salvager's busy offloading. The regulars likely at the ord exchange or queuing for work at the Havenage shipyards. You're in the right mood for a quiet shift. Some cycles drag along. The overlook empty and claustrophobic, but this one's caught you just right. And in this moment, some kind of calm has descended as you tinker away at the bar, lining up the bottles as your thoughts expand to fill the space. Suddenly you hear a heavy clunking at the door. It creaks open and a huge cylindrical metal tank tumbles through, slamming into the floor. Shit! Tala breezes in from behind it, a whirl of hair and bright eyes. Shit, shit, shit! Tala? Sleeper! She ducks behind the bar and comes over. Can you help me with this? You look at the huge metal tank suspiciously. How did you get that up here? Tala puts a hand on her hip. Are you gonna help me or what? You come around the bar and get to one side of the tank. Okay, says Tala. On my count. 1, 2, 3. You both heave the tank up to standing, somehow. You hold it in place, struggling to keep it steady. Where's this going? In the back, comes a voice from behind the tank. Somehow you manage to lug the huge thing into the back room, where you place it in one corner, dwarfing the rest of the contents of the cramped space. As you do, you hear a crunch. Uh-oh. You stand back and look at the expired rations oozing out from under the tank. Oh, shit. Tala looks at you apologetically. I know you liked those. Good riddance. Tala smiles. Oh, good. I thought maybe liking expired rations was some kind of sleeper thing. You push the crushed rations to one side. That's the end of that. Tala looks exhausted and rubs her shoulders. Francis, I swear to... Francis? Francis! I mentioned him already. My guy on the door deals with suppliers. Tall. She sighs. He was supposed to be back from Etienne's up in the Greenway by now. Back with our gear roll. She leans against the tank. It seems like he's got lost again or joined the Haifa commune. We need that gear roll. There's 4 other bars near here, and the spacers sure as hell don't come to the overlook for the ambiance. She looks through the open door to check if anyone can hear her. She knocks on the hollow tank. So I'm taking matters into my own hands. She smiles. Welcome, sleeper, to the Overlook Distillery. You look around the dank back room. It needs some work. She picks at some paint flaking from the metal walls. Well, I might need some help, though. She shrugs. You up for it? She knocks on the tank again. Could be fun. Happy to help. Okay, she grabs you by the shoulders. I'm excited. She turns around and looks at the tank. I reckon we chop this thing in half. 1 half for fermentation, the other we turn into a still. We'll also need to gather the ingredients. She turns back and looks at you. You look more like a chopper than a gatherer. She smiles. So how about you build the still and tub while I work on the rest? Oh, wait, sleeper, I have an idea. Tala's grinning now, and it's making you nervous. To make up for the rations, how about we put a kitchen in here, too? Kitchen? Uh-huh. I always wanted to serve food. She turns back to the tank. This is going to be great, she says to herself. You look at the dented tank and the bare room. At least she has a vision. Tala nudges you out the back door and back room and closes the door. As you go back to the bar, you hear the banging and thumping begin. The spacer finishes up the drink and nods in your direction as they leave. You can't quite tell if it's a gesture of sympathy or good luck. So much for a quiet shift. Okay, well, picked up a new drive. Probably just what we didn't need to do as far as the other quests go, but, so that pays, but I have no need for that. That's just a job we're working on. Okay, we'll come back to that. I think we should finish the side rail horizon. We're very close, so just get it done, yeah? That's not better. Should be fine. That's that. Progress is a daily grind, but every weld brings the side rail horizon closer to completion. The sense of scale can be exhausting. Crew slowly filters out of the shipyard locker room, the bubbling chatter reducing with each group that leaves. There's excitement in the air. Haven has just made an announcement. The assembly teams are done. Sat on the locker room bench, you can feel the side reel out there, its hulking mass now intimately familiar to you. Over the past cycles, you've watched it grow, be assembled. You've walked through its veins and welded its bones. Now, it's ready for the final stage. It'll go to testing now, then enter a final process of sealing and resealing, checking and rechecking before it's deemed suitable for its generational trip, but for now, your work is done. You can't help but feel proud. A cough interrupts your thoughts. It's Lem, changing out of his work gear. Mina nowhere to be seen. He smiles. She'll be ready soon. I know. It's exciting, although, if you think about it, we're all out of a job now. He quickly adds, not that I'm complaining. Lem comes to sit beside you on the bench. She's got to be in her best shape when she carries you and Mina and me out of here. I'm confident, Lem. Lem smiles apologetically. Why not? I figure I'm due a lucky turn by now. He rubs his hands nervously. No use in wondering what if until the draw anyway, and there's a few cycles till then. Lem's right, but the odds seem unlikely anyway. How many are working in the shipyard? Hundreds? 1,000? You've certainly seen more faces than you can count pass through. And are the Sealess Foundation even going to keep their province? Out here on the Eye, you get the sense no one will hold them to it. Why else would they be building the side rail in a surrogate system? As you think, Lem watches you with a worried look. Telling me about Sealess? The Foundation? He thinks. I'm not sure I know much more than you. I hear they have a planet in mind for the side reel, something temperate and habitable. I think they're run by some rich folk from the core, people interested in doing things differently. Different how? Lem looks into space. Well, I guess they don't like the way the core runs things. All these surrogate systems like this one, feeding resources into their silos. It's a pyramid of sorts, and we are the bottom layer. I guess Celis wants to change that. I'd rather keep my mind to the prize, so to speak. I don't much care what they're for or against as long as they can help us get out of here. He sighs. You ever been in a thunderstorm, Sleeper? A real big one? I don't remember. Lem shoots you a worried look for a moment. It's something else. He smiles. The sound, smell, the rain hammering down. The whole sky stretched out and bruised, roaring and huge. The place I was born, New Pembroke, a dry old rock and a Conway system, had 2 seasons. One of them was as dry as bone, dusty, ugly. The other was one long storm, a side effect of the terraforming efforts, they said. Rain used to rattle off the roofs like bullets. It washed the dust away, turned the streets to rivers. It'd sing us to sleep and wake us in the morning. We'd wait half a year just to see it again. The best day was the one where the first drops fell. He sniffs. Some days I wake up swearing I can hear it again. I was thinking Mina's never seen a storm, never even felt rain. She's grown up here, the ring her only horizon, always in the dark. I want to change that for her. You will, Lem. Of course, almost there. Lem stands, stretching. Best get back to the little one anyway. With the shifts done, I reckon she'll be happy to have me home for a few cycles. He shoulders his gear. See you in a few for the draw? I'll be there. Right on, he grins. Lem leaves, making you the last person in the cavernous locker room. As you sit, you think about rain, and a little hope creeps in. Is it possible? Could the side really take you to a planet? A place with weather, with skies, with life? You get up quickly before you can think about it anymore. It's too soon to hope. Too dangerous. There's work to be done. Could you bail? Like, I guess it depends what the draw does, but if that works, then could you just leave ridiculously early on here? Like, because technically I could have finished that a long time ago if I had focused on it. Okay. We're gonna leave that there. And cycle. So we progressed both of those. They're not necessarily finished. So the shipyard arc might be finished, but... there's that and that too, but we'll come back to those. Let's get started with Act 2 of this, eh? Oh, right. Well, there's two things, I guess. Let's finish exploring. We look around for more to do, but for now the bay you're inside is clear. And we found Soul, a local captain. Anything here? No, just to deliver the flux data. What's up, Soul? Someone told me I should be thanking you. The voice comes from behind you, cutting through the chaos of the crowded, cavernous bay. You freeze. Don't be afraid now. I've been hunting you, sure, but for all the best reasons. You turn to see bright eyes, set in a rough face framed in rusted metal. Soul! He holds out his hand, the other clamped firmly around a knotted wooden cane. He grips you firmly with a heavy and calloused hand. Forgive me. As soon as I saw you, I knew who you were. Soul puts a hand on your shoulder. I've been told a sleeper was part of that supply run that came in several cycles ago. He nods. A very welcome act, and we all thank you for it. Walk with me, sleeper. Soul sets off through the bay, his partial suit hissing and creaking as it helps carry him through the busy crowds. You notice people making way for you and Soul, standing back and letting you pass. You pass a makeshift kitchen, steaming pots on heating elements, a restless queue collecting meals. That algae that came through isn't exactly a full meal, but with what we have here, we've been able to make it work. You see a ladle of a greenish stew dished out. The color is something, isn't it? Soul smiles. Soul leads you out of the larger bay into a corridor lined with storage rooms that are now serving as dorms. You see someone filling a metal container from a standpipe, the water gushing out readily. Soul nods to the person as he passes. Just a little further now. Soul leads you into a freight elevator and whistles to some on-scene operator to start it up. It jerks into life, and as you pass through the layers of the ship, you see people on every level, supplies crammed into every available space, and sparks leaping in bursts as the ship is reshaped and modified to sustain its population. If Havenage were expecting an exodus from the Flotilla, the Flux event has put a stop to that, Soul stretches. Some have crossed to the eye, but many just to gather salvage or score a hot meal. So the pressure on our supplies is shrinking, but not like I'd hoped. With the Flux reaching all the way out here, people are starting to understand our journey might not be over. Soul stares grimly ahead. Suddenly, the freight elevator screeches to a halt, and Soul leads you slowly out into a wide room of chairs and terminals, ringed by a mezzanine and with a glass roof above showing the distant hub and the far curve of the eye beyond. The people at the terminals nod to him as he enters. This is your ship? Soul nods. That's right. The Pilgrim Seed is mine to care for. He leads you up to a railed platform at the center of the room and stops. She chose me, so to speak. At least her crew did, and I do my best to serve them. Soul looks around the bridge of the ship, a pained expression on his face. I'll admit that the responsibility isn't one that suits me, though we rarely get to choose such things. He glances back at you. But you, Sleeper, from what I understand, you chose to try to help us here. Is that right? I did my best. Soul nods silently. But I have to ask you, Sleeper, why are you here now? Soul leans back and you feel his eyes on you, assessing you. The Flux event, honestly. I appreciate the honesty. I had figured as much. Soul flexes the shoulder that's free of the suit. Looking at you now, I can see that an event like that, well, would have had a big impact. He smiles a half smile. I have thousands of people here on the Pilgrim Seed, Sleeper, and there's thousands more out in the Flotilla. He leans against a railing. A lot of them are looking to me to provide some future for them, some path out of this dead end we've got into. And this cycle, this very cycle, well, it's several cycles ago already, but whatever. The thing we've been running away from, it just caught up with us. So these people are scared, Sleeper, and they are looking to me for reassurance. And then on the same cycle, someone tells me they see you on board. A Sleeper, the same Sleeper, they reckon, that wanted so strongly to send a ship past the cordon to see us. Soul scratches at his beard. So the first thing I wanted to do was thank you for that, for your interest. He pauses. But the second thing I wanted to do was find out what you want from us. Soul's suit hisses and creaks. I think that's fair, don't you? Soul takes a deep breath. So, what is it? Tell me about the Flux. Someone at a terminal calls out to Soul, and he shouts some orders back. He turns to you. Apologies. He smiles that half smile. I tell you what, Sleeper, let's you and me make a deal. You want information, I understand that, but I have a list of needs longer than the rim of the eye itself. He grimaces. So you do some things for me, and then we can talk about what's been happening in this system, and I will answer all your questions and then some. I may be the captain of the Pilgrim Seed, and she is certainly the biggest ship in this flotilla, but I'm not the only captain here. We have ships here from each of the moons. We're from Ember's Hearth, but there's others from Ember's Song and even Ember's Step. The moons have been at each other's throats, Sleeper. What with the pressure of the flux, the bad blood from the old days, Soul leans in, we aren't exactly all in alignment. What I need is a way to stop things escalating, for the crews on these ships and their captains to feel happy and comfortable enough to forget old rivalries and past crimes. He flinches at something. Those from Ember's Step, well, they've always been proud, but that pride seems to be a barrier to compromise right now. The last set of supplies I sent their way, they refused. Meanwhile, I have a supply shuttle at the docking axis the Ember's Song ships gather at, but they have taken far too many cycles to unload. Maybe if you're heading that way, you can look in on them. I'm no politician, Sleeper, but if I don't... Soul stops. He leans back and flexes, his suit screeching. He groans a little, and you see the weight of the flotilla sitting on his shoulders, the suit the only thing keeping him vertical underneath all that pressure. Look, you'll see for yourself if you go. Meet the others, Sleeper. See what they need. Keep them aligned. He speaks through the pain, his voice clipped. You okay, Soul? Not really, but as long as this thing holds, he grimaces. I hope, Soul grits his teeth, you are what you appear to be, Sleeper. He smiles his half-smile despite the pain. Because I'm not sure I can take any more bad news. Plus, there's plenty to be done here on the Pilgrim Seed, too, if you have a moment to pitch in. There's never enough around here, that's something I've learnt the hard way. Soul settles onto his cane, the pain visibly receding. Alright, I have 1,000 things to attend to now, Sleeper, so you'll have to find your own way out. And with that, Soul sits at his terminal with slow and careful movements. You head back down in the freight elevator, and as you do, you see again the layers and layers of chaotic life this vessel, and all the vessels the flotilla hold. Okay. Pilgrim Seed, Aki, and the docking axis for the Ember's Song, so we got 3 different things now. The Pilgrim Seed, oh, a lot of progress because we got the supplies through, huh? But they still need Matsutake caps for food, and... This Pilgrim Seeds, even Soul's own ship requires help figuring out what jobs need doing first, and who to help is a challenge. So, sort of just doing jobs and supplying food. Well, I don't have any other use for the Matsutake caps. So, well, hold on, let me check what the other ships need. So we need to relieve pressure on all 3. There's no timer right now, though, critically. What if I should not turn the flux thing in, and maybe we can avoid having a timer? Docking access. Soul's shipment of supplies sits partially unloaded, the crew absent. If you want to help, the best way would be to finish the job. The more you offload supplies into the docking bay, the more attention your efforts seem to be gaining. Okay. And then, who the hell are you? It's a strange sight, given your time spent in the Greenway, to see a greenhouse choked in red dust. It piles up along edges, gathers in curving waves, and is carried by some unseen wind to whirl in front of the glass ceiling. It's a desert in miniature, a captured landscape of iron-rich sediment and unseen life. Beautiful, isn't it? The remark comes from another figure standing at the viewing window, so quickly that you hadn't noticed them. So quietly that you hadn't noticed them. Did they just arrive, or were they here or were they here before you were? Their cloth-swaddled form reveals little. It is. They say nothing. You catch a glimpse of a pale face among the thick material, dark eyes glittering in the red reflected light. They turn to you as the dust swirls. Aki, they smile a tight smile. You're not from the Flotilla, am I right? I live on the Eye. That's not where you're from. She stares into the greenhouse. Everyone's from somewhere, whether they wish to be or not. The red dust glitters in her eyes, whether it's a good place to be from or not. Aki gathers her cloak around her shoulders against the cold. What brings you to the wind's long shadow? Soul sent me. What the hell kind of a name is that? Soul sent me. Aki doesn't respond. She looks absent-mindedly at the dust. You're a strange one. Aki raises an eyebrow. I don't know whether to report you or send you back to where you came from. She smiles to herself, which is nowhere at all. You glance around the empty corridor, suddenly aware of how quiet it is on the ship. Unlike the other ships you've been on the Flotilla, there's a silent order to the wind's long shadow, and in this moment it feels unsettling. Where is everyone? Aki waves a hand. Asleep, mostly. It's night on step, and so it is night here. She rubs her shoulders, at least for those of us who can sleep. Step? Aki turns away, irritated, eager to change the subject. Oh, sorry. You hear a creak as a set of shutters slowly begin to close across the glass ceiling of the greenhouse. As you watch, you feel the dissonance this place has with that word. There's nothing green here. A dust house, perhaps. It takes many systems to preserve this landscape, Aki begins. To simulate the wind, cycle the dust, layer the sand and dirt beneath. You watch the dust swirling. Systems that are failing. The flux event, Aki glances at you for a sign of recognition at this term, is eroding our ability to keep this place alive. To keep these traces of Step alive. She smiles to herself. Which is ironic, because when we left Step, the flux had eroded our ability to survive on the moon. Now the situation is reversed. Away from the moon, its ecosystems are as fragile as we were living upon it. Something catches your eye as the shutters darken the dust house. The winds, picking away at the dunes, begin to reveal something. A web, a network of thick branching forms. And then they close completely, and you see nothing in the dark. Soft blue lights flicker on in the corridor, uplighting Aki in cold cyan. You've piqued my curiosity, but I'm tired, Aki shivers. If you do not have a purpose here on the ship, I recommend finding one. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll need to leave. Make yourself useful, and perhaps we'll get another chance to talk. She turns. I'd like that. With that, Aki pads away along the corridor. You stand for a moment in front of the dark dust house, trying to imagine the network of roots under the sand and dust, and then trying to imagine the moon that once housed them. So they need systems repair for the dust houses. Make myself useful, etc. Okay, so we have the new set of quests, essentially. We need to fix all 3 ships of the Flotilla. Well, the 3 major factions of the Flotilla. We need to investigate the flux, but there's no timers on any of this, critically. And we need to work on... well, that's just ticking down. We need to work on this and this as well, which we could have done ages ago, but we didn't prioritize them, so... we prioritized other stuff that we were more immediately skilled at. But so those are the missions now. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for now. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. And have a nice day. This is Sea Lord Janda, signing off.